everybody. I know it's been a while since I did a Wellness Wednesday, but given the things that have been going on lately, I thought that it might be good to do a little talk about grief and grieving and the grieving process. If you've gone through any kind of loss in your life, then you know that everybody kind of grieves in different ways for different amounts of time. There are a lot of different emotions and feelings and ways that you go through the grieving process. Most people know about the 5 stages of grief, which was first proposed by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in her book On Death and Dying. In each one of the 5 stages, there's not like a time limit on where you stay in them or how long you go through them, or even that you go through them in an exact order. But commonly, the flow of the grieving cycle is this: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and finally acceptance. I'm going to delve a little bit into each one of the stages, but I just wanted to reiterate, it is okay and perfectly natural to not go through the cycle as I'm like plotting it out. A lot of people will, because of that difference in grieving, maybe in one stage for longer, or may skip one and come back to one, and instead of a circle you might kind of have like a star. Some people do it one way, some people do it another. Some people are very emotional, where they're their emotions and their feelings on their sleeves and maybe crying all the time. That's okay. That's how they grieve. There are other people who may become very quiet, introverted, kind of bring everything in, and that's okay too. You shouldn't feel forced to face your grieving in a way that isn't comfortable for you. It's a very personal thing, and you need to be comfortable in what you're feeling. The first stage is denial, and it's kind of self-explanatory. That's like those feelings of shock, of disbelief, of there's no way this can be happening, there's no way this happened, I don't believe this. The period of denial is usually quite temporary. It's that first initial reaction to any kind of news, whether that's, a death itself, or maybe even a diagnosis of something terminal, getting that really bad news, because grieving doesn't have to just be death. Grieving can be the end of a relationship. It can be a diagnosis that's changing your life drastically. You're still grieving for, that relationship that you had, that the way that your life used to be. The second stage is anger, and this usually comes after that denial, like when you're trying to finally come to grips with everything. You can be very angry, very upset at the fact that this situation is happening. It's important to be able to keep that anger in check and not take it out on the people around you, the things around you, and especially not the person. You may feel an anger towards them, that you are, you're leaving me, you left me, and taking that out on them. Sometimes that anger comes from a place of guilt. You may feel guilty for not spending enough time with somebody. You may feel like what is happening to them was your fault. You had something to do with it. You can be very irrational with it and think that, I did something wrong and that's why so-and-so got sick. That's why whatever situation happened. When you're in that stage of anger, it can be good to reach out to a therapist, or even just somebody that you trust that can keep a cool head in the situation and maybe give you some advice about how to better deal with those feelings that you're having. The next stage is bargaining, and bargaining comes when you have those feelings of just hopelessness, of what should I do? What could I do? What should I have done? If we'd gone to the doctor sooner, if I would have called her that day, if, tons of ifs. This is also a time where you hear people saying, bargaining with a higher power, like, oh, take me instead of him. Why did she have to go? It should have been me. A lot of time people use bargaining and those, deals with God to kind of postpone what's going to happen. They don't want to deal with their emotions and feelings right now. They don't want to deal with the reality of the situation. So you try and find some way to not make it happen, even though it's usually something that is beyond your control. The fourth stage is depression, and when we're talking about depression and grieving, there's typically 2 different types of depression that occur. The first type of depression is really dealing with the aftermath of the passing, of the ending of the change, worrying about funeral costs, worrying that you may be neglecting the people around you. And a lot of times in that, you just kind of need some reassurance from someone that, you know, everything is all right. You're doing the best that you can. The second type is much more private, much more personal, in that you are coming to terms with everything and doing your own kind of personal break with that person. You know, coming to terms with the fact of them not being there anymore, the fact of things being very different, and learning to let go of that past and find ways that you're going to move forward into the future. The final stage is acceptance, and honestly, not everybody can get to a place of acceptance in the grief cycle. Sometimes what happens is very unexpected. Somebody dies in a car accident, you didn't have that time to, you know, say your goodbyes. It just happened. You know, it's not like somebody having a terminal illness and they say you have 6 months. Okay, well, let's do everything we can in those 6 months to make sure that they were the best for you and that we spent time together and made memories. A lot of times people don't get to the acceptance stage because they don't get past denial and anger, and they just keep cycling back and forth through those. Also, just because you've accepted the new reality of something that has ended or somebody that has passed, that doesn't mean you're forgetting about them. That doesn't mean that their existence means nothing anymore, but it means that you have accepted that this is life now. This is how things are going to be from, you know, this point on, that this person or this way of living is not going to be the same, is not going to be there. And slowly learning how to rebuild, how to restart, and how to move on. Grieving is a very, very personal thing, and it's going to be different for everybody. You're gonna, like I said, feel different feelings. You're gonna go through the stages differently. You may deal with them all mixed up. You may be stuck in one for years before you move on to another one. And nobody can tell you that how you're grieving is wrong, because it is personal for you. It is very individual. And the only thing that you can do is be constantly aware of how you're feeling with the situation and trying your best to move forward. I've had so much loss in my life between family members and between my pets, who I still consider like a human being in my life. And I think I've gotten to a place for me where I know I need distractions. And it's not that I distract myself so much from the situation that I am ignoring it, but I use the distractions to kind of give my brain a break, I guess. Even outside of that realm of grieving, I am a person that really dwells and worries about stuff. I will constantly be thinking of something I said or did or saw or that somebody else said. So having a distraction when I'm feeling very emotional about something, for me, is very good. That little bit of a distraction is enough to kind of reset my thinking, that I can be more rational in the way that I'm looking at things and dealing with things. The one thing that I've learned over my life with all of the loss that I've dealt with is that you just need to feel it. You need to go through it. The more that you're resisting getting into the grieving process, the more that you're like trying to ignore whatever's going on, the more you are drawing out that healing process. Like I said, there's no time limit on it. It's not, if you go through these stages in 3 months, everything will be fine again. It could take you decades to get through something. But the point is, you have to get into the cycle wherever you are and work through it. And however long you have to be in one of those stages, just be in it, feel it, work through it. And hopefully you can get to that stage of acceptance. If you're going through something right now, a loss, a change, a diagnosis, I urge you to try and find people locally, support groups, counselors, anybody that can help you, so that you can feel a little better equipped for going through the grieving process. Doesn't mean that just because you read a book or you read a lot online or you're listening to me talk about it, that it's going to make it any easier. But it helps you to know that what you're going through, what you're feeling is all right. Like, perfectly natural to grieve for things, to have mixed feelings, to feel that anger, to deny it, to, you know, all of those things. Perfectly natural, perfectly okay. And you need to just go through it. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below and I'll get back to you ASAP. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you guys on Monday with a what I did this weekend. Love you guys. Bye.